What's going on, y'all? Thanks for checking in with Callie. Please like, subscribe if you haven't already. So I was reading online and I actually listened to Ty Lue speak as well. Also read the comments just to see if there's anything I actually missed. But Ty Lue was hinting at, basically who's going to be in the starting lineup for the Clippers. And before I go into this, I personally think that I've always thought that Ty Lue was the biggest problem the Clippers had that nobody really speaks about. And honestly, there's times where I felt like Ty Lue wanted to coach elsewhere other than the Clippers and sabotage the Clippers at times. But that's just a belief. That's not really anything factual, so I can't really dwell on that or speak on that too much. That's just a hunch that I have, especially some Lakers games that they played against the Lakers. I feel like he threw the game with some, calls and decisions that he made to help the Lakers win just because he's always going to be cool with LeBron. And I understand that, but even still, when I think about what's implementing now, the way Ty Lue can actually help this team even more is by sticking to his guns. Once you insert a team, the starting lineup to where it's going to be, stick with that unless due to injury. Don't try to experiment too much and try to tweak things here and there too much, because sometimes that tampers with chemistry also. Because, we always talk about the Clippers being injured and not being healthy and things like that, which is very true. The injury bug has always hit the Clippers, especially when it came to Kawhi and some of the main players on the Clippers throughout the years, like Paul George and players like that too when he was there. But at the same time, one thing I always thought that held them back, that a lot of people don't talk about, or that's not talked about enough, I should say, is the fact that Ty Lue's coaching isn't always up to par as I feel like it should be, because there are times where he's had starting lineups, and he would always tweak and throw a player maybe from the bench, on a 3 position, 4 position, whatever, and tweak and throw a player from the bench into the starting lineup, not only due to injury, but he would do it sometimes just to experiment. And I've seen him do it in other situations too. But my point is, I feel like that messes up chemistry a lot of times, because if you have everything working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? I feel like Ty Lue doesn't understand that logic. Now, going into this season, he's hinting at, or basically saying that Bradley Beal will be in the starting lineup. So really, it should probably be, it's going to be James Harden, Bradley Beal the 2, James Harden the 1, Bradley Beal the 2, Kawhi the 3. The good thing I do like, John Collins and DJ are basically battling, for that power forward position, the 4 position, and then Zubac is at the 5 in the starting lineup. Now, I will say, me personally, I like the fact that he's letting them kind of battle it out to see who's going to take that starting role. Honestly, I do like DJ a little bit more in the starting lineup, just because he's kind of more familiar with the territory. He's familiar with the culture a little bit more. And he played pretty damn good last year, honestly, just, being inserted in the team in a quick manner. And he showed his presence. He did. And I like that. And I like what he brings. I like his length. I like his defense. I don't know. I don't believe he can shoot percentage-wise better than John Collins, but he can defend, I think, just as good as John Collins. And he's a little bit, you can go tit for tat who's more athletic, but I don't know. I just like DJ a little bit more because I feel like he can move his feet a little bit better on defense. And like I said, I don't know. I just feel like he's more. He just has more hunger about him. Like he wants it. You know what I mean? Like he has that drive about him that I see. That's just my opinion. But either or, I don't think you're going to go wrong either or in that 4 position, because both of them have height, both of them have athleticism, and both of them can knock down a 3. Maybe not at the highest of clips, but I think John Collins does shoot the 3 a little bit better. So I would give him the edge there. But I don't know, for some reason I like DJ's motor a little bit more than I like John Collins' motor. But either way, I think that starting lineup is good. I think it's solid, and I think he doesn't need to go away from it. So, like, in the past, we've seen situations where he would make a tweak in a 4 position like that, because these 2 guys are battling for the 4 position between DJ and John Collins. In the middle of the season, he would make a tweak at it just because, based upon who's playing harder in practice that day or something like that. And I don't really think that's something that Ty Lue should do. Stick with your guns, stick with who you got. Only make tweaks in the lineup like that if by injury or if because of injury. Don't do it just because you have a hunch and this player is playing harder in practice today than the other player and other guys like lagging off a little bit, and you say, okay, we're going to make a tweak in the starting lineup and put, hypothetically, John Collins in the starting lineup over DJ or something like that. Stick with what you have, because that's how you build chemistry too. And that's how you disrupt chemistry, when you make tweaks like that at times when it's really not even needed. Get the guys familiar with each other, because the main thing is, if John Collins hypothetically is going to be in the starting lineup, leave him there so he'll learn to play with Kawhi and James Harden and them in the starting lineup. He'll know his role. He'll know his position. He'll pick his spots where he need to be when he needs to try to score and when he needs to implement his will on the game. And that's how you build chemistry. And sometimes I think Ty Lue forgets that, because, his mentor, Doc Rivers, well, we know his track record. He's known for losing 7-game series, being up 3-1, and his coaching is just atrocious. The only way I think he only won that championship with the Boston Celtics because they had a big four and they were stacked from top to bottom, and they were all kind of sort of, well, not in their prime, but Paul Pierce, KG, and Kevin Garnett. Paul Pierce and KG and Ray Allen weren't exactly at the end of the road for their prime, but they were getting close. But they still had 1 or 2 good years left in them, along with a young Bull and Rondo who controlled the offense and who wasn't a selfish player who didn't even need to score that much. And then, you had Perkins and Leon Poe and all the other guys who fit in well. It was a perfect combination. So, but either way, with this situation here, I hope that Ty Lue has learned not to take too many tips from Doc Rivers. Hopefully he's not talking to Doc Rivers in the offseason as much, asking about coaching tips. If he's asking about personal things, okay, cool. But coaching tips, I think he's took a little too much coaching tips from Doc Rivers, which hindered Ty Lue from helping the Clippers be a better team than what they were. Of course, we know they had injuries, but there's no reason why the Clippers shouldn't have made a couple of conference finals. There's no reason why they shouldn't, because they had stacked teams. They had teams where, it was, good enough to at least get past the first round or second round at times that they didn't. You know what I mean? So it's one of those situations where coaching is a factor. A lot of people may not look at it because basketball is looked at as more the superstar, as the guy that holds up the fort and everything. And football is more looked at as like the coaches mean more in football than it does in basketball to most people. But to me, it's the same level. Coaches are on the same level in every sport. Coaches are needed just as much as the players, because the players need guidance sometime when they're not actually looking at things from a different angle. So if Ty Lue is going to be that engineer for this team as the head coach, he has to stick with a lineup, let everybody get used to each other, let everybody learn their position, let everybody learn how to implement their will on the game when the time calls them to do it, and be comfortable doing it. And the only way to do that is to build the chemistry and keep everything pretty solid, keep everything pretty much the same. If he wants to tweak minutes from the bench aspect, okay, maybe that's not too bad. But at the same time, if you can keep the bench mob pretty much, who you use and who you selectively use going into games, keep that consistent too. That's the main thing here. Keep it consistent. If Ty Lue can do that, and hopefully health is on their side, the Clippers will be a dangerous team. The only teams I think in the West that really would challenge them, as I see right now, is probably Denver and OKC. Now, don't get me wrong, there's other teams that can possibly challenge them, but I just think the Clippers are actually better than most other teams. I think the team they match up with very well is Denver once again, along with OKC. I think they'll give OKC a run just because of the talent they have from top to bottom. And on top of that, the experience they have. And to me, Kawhi, in my eyes, Kawhi is a better player than SGA. SGA is a version of Kawhi Leonard. He plays about the same. Their game is almost similar in some way, the mid-range, all that stuff. SGA doesn't talk as much. He's very quiet, stay to himself, just like Kawhi Leonard. He kind of reminds me of him in some ways, but he's not Kawhi Leonard, because he doesn't have that defensive prowess that Kawhi has that makes him the claw. And Kawhi still has that. He's showing that in preseason. The game against the Nuggets, where he had a couple of steals and it looked like the Kawhi of old, 2018 Kawhi. So, I mean, if Kawhi is on that, then the league is in trouble if he's healthy. And I feel like a lot of people talk about Kawhi's health and all that, but honestly, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of players in the league that secretly are glad he's not healthy every single year. Because if he was, I mean, I think the Clippers would have been to at least 2 finals by now. Whether they won both of them or not doesn't matter. I mean, of course, you hope they do, but I think I think they would have went to 2 NBA finals by now if Kawhi was healthy every single year. So, I mean, the fact they talk about him not being healthy and load managing, Kawhi is a great player, and he's accomplished a whole lot with all the less basketball that he's played amongst other players that people talk about. He's more accomplished than most players in the NBA and played a whole lot less. So if he plays more this year, which I don't expect him to play more than about 55, 60 games, which is good for Kawhi Leonard and his knees. But he can give him 55, 60 games, somewhere in there, build some type of camaraderie with the new teammates that he has. They'll be good, I think. I think that would actually put them in a bracket of being one of the elite teams in the NBA rather than actually, just a pretender, as some people probably think they are, especially with all the players that they have now that are elder and they're not actually in their youth anymore. But I still think there's a lot of basketball left in these guys, at least 1 or 2 more years. Bradley Beal still looks like he can, fill up a stat sheet. Chris Paul looks like he is very, very capable of playing off the bench as he did last year with the Spurs and still being productive, can give you about 10 points and 7 assists a game if given the minutes. They have a lot of good pieces, they really do. And I really like the Brook Lopez pickup that they have. Brook Lopez is probably the most underrated pickup of the offseason in the NBA for any team, because Brook Lopez can stretch the floor and he gives them a different dynamic than what Zubac does. Zubac can anchor the paint and play defense. Well, Brook Lopez can still play a little bit of defense and he can stretch the floor and give them an extra threat as a shooter. So at some point in the game, they have possibly 5 shooters on the floor. Possibly 5 guys who can knock down threes. That's going to make them so hard to deal with in a 7-game series if the rotation is there. And sometime, like I said, there might be situations in the playoffs where Ty Lue might actually put both big men on the floor. I can see him doing that. I really can. So if he does that, and you still got, good defenders like, DJ, Nico, of course, Kawhi, they could be a juggernaut if they stay healthy. They really can. So hopefully that happens, and we'll see how the season pans out when it starts.